Behind me is one of the most anticipated cars of 2024 and arguably the last few years. It has the potential to change the way you think about electric vehicles. Because in a world of increasingly rapid acceleration from EVs, none of them have yet to truly capture the heart of the enthusiast driver. The Hyundai Ioniq 5N could change that because the brand promises it retains all the characteristics from the i30N and the i20N hot hatches that have been so popular for the brand, including engaging the driver, something that electric performance cars have struggled to do until now. In other words, we know EVs can be fast. Can they be fun? Let's find out. Right, let's get the awkward bit out of the way and start with price, because if you're one of those people that hasn't caught up with Hyundai's glow up over the last decade or so, and you still think of it as a brand that sells 19,990 cars, well, you may have a cardiac moment when I tell you this costs $111,000 plus on road costs. Now, regardless obviously of the brand's improvement in recent years, that's still a significant jump. It's more than $25,000 more expensive than the next most expensive car in the lineup, and it pushes the brand into six figures for the first time in its history. It's a lot of money for a Hyundai. It's a lot of money for a mid-size SUV. It's a lot of money for an electric car. In fact, there's only one way to look at it as not expensive. On a kilowatt per dollar equation, the Ioniq 5N does start to look a bit more appealing. It works out at costing $232 per kilowatt compared to, say, $931 per kilowatt for a Ferrari 296 GTB and $981 per kilowatt for a Porsche 911 Carrera. So it's certainly not cheap, but on a bang for your buck basis, it does make a more compelling prospect. Now, if you want to know more about the price and the specifications of the Ioniq 5N, make sure you check out my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au.
The Ioniq 5N is longer, wider and lower than the standard Ioniq 5. That's thanks to the unique front and rear bumpers, side sills, rear spoiler and rear diffuser, all highlighted by this N-exclusive bright orange stripe that runs around the entire car. The front end features what Hyundai calls air curtain apertures, active air flaps, and a unique grille that have been designed to not only help cooling, but also give the car a more aggressive look. It also sits lower for a more purposeful stance, with a two-tone black lower section to further emphasize that sporty look. The overall look is completed by exclusive 21-inch lightweight forged alloy wheels fitted with Pirelli P0 tyres that were specifically designed for the Ioniq 5N, which are 20mm wider than what you'll find on the rest of the Ioniq 5 range.
Inside, it retains a lot of the spaciousness of the Ioniq 5, although they have ditched the much talked about floating console, but there's also a lot of very obvious N touches to give it a sportier, more dynamic feeling. For starters, these seats, these N seats, they're designed to hug you a little tighter, so when you are cornering, they're going to keep you more in place. And the other really obvious one is this steering wheel. Big, thick rim, lots of buttons everywhere. You've got a drive mode select button, you've got two customizable M buttons, so you can set a particular setting and then you can just bang, it's already on. And you've got this big bright red one marked NGB, that's to activate the N Grin Boost for the extra performance. As for the rest of it, you've got these two large digital screens that are actually integrated into a single element, but you've got obviously all the driving information in front of you. You can dial up all different infotainment systems in the center here, including the N-specific mode. You can dial up the track maps and all those sorts of things. But overall, there's like an air of quality to the cabin. You've got plenty of leather and Alcantara, and of course, Hyundai's now trademark N Performance Blue stitching as a contrast. So yeah, overall, it does feel like a real step up in quality compared to what was already a very nice Ioniq 5. Back seat space is fairly generous, although the seats themselves aren't quite as exciting as those in the front, but they do get the same trim treatment with Alcantara and leather and the contrasting stitching. And the boot still measures a very practical 480 litres. Now we get into the main attraction, and that's what's under here, because this is like nothing Hyundai has ever produced before, electric or petrol powered. It's based on the same eGMP platform that the standard Ioniq 5 is on, but it's got bigger, more powerful electric motors front and rear to take the performance level up a notch, or multiple notches. I mean, this has genuinely got supercar levels of power and torque. The Ioniq 5N makes a staggering 478 kilowatts and 770 newton meters when you dial up the N Grin boost, by far the most powerful production car in the brand's history. Even in its normal mode, it makes 448 kilowatts and 740 newton meters, which is a frankly mind-blowing 242 kilowatts and 384 newton meters more than the brand's i30N hot hatch and its 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine. Hyundai claims the Ioniq 5N takes just 3.4 seconds to run 0 to 100 Ks, which for context is as fast as a Ferrari Roma or a Lamborghini Huracan. To control all this performance, Hyundai deploys a range of technologies, including all-wheel drive and electronic limited slip diff and torque distribution. And that's only a fraction of the high-tech help Hyundai has used to ensure the Ioniq 5N handles like a true enthusiast desires. The Ioniq 5N is fitted with an 84 kilowatt-hour battery compared to a 77.4 kilowatt-hour option in the standard model. The extra capacity only comes with a 3.7 kilogram weight disadvantage, but allows for the significant power boost. Range is claimed at 448 kilometers, and thanks to the 800 volt electrical system, the Ioniq 5N can plug into either an 800 or a 400 volt infrastructure and is capable of taking up to 350 kilowatts of ultra fast charging. Frankly, Hyundai has added too many functions for me to go into any sort of significant depth here in this video. So if you want to know more, make sure you check out my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au. But most of them have some sort of N prefix, N race, N pedal, N launch control. But there are two I want to focus on right now, and that is N Active Sound Plus and N E Shift. Because these deal with what is typically the most critical element that driving enthusiasts have when it comes to performance electric cars. And that is the lack of sound. There's no engine noise, so you lose a sense of speed and that sort of audio delight that you get from a good sounding engine. And the lack of gear shifting. You're no longer in control. It's a single speed gearbox, so it just speeds up and slows down, and you don't really get that sense of driving the car. N-Active Sound Plus is an artificial soundtrack for the car that's integrated into the powertrain so it matches the speed and the conditions to give you an audio cue to how fast you're driving. The sound is delivered through both internal and external speakers, so both occupants and passers-by can hear the Ioniq 5N in action. There are 3 so-called sound profiles to choose from: a petrol engine like the i30N, a futuristic EV noise, and one that is supposed to sound like a supersonic fighter jet. As for NE Shift, it provides virtual shift jolts and a sound effect to create the impression that you're changing gears, even though it has, like I say, a single speed gearbox. So, do they work? Do they actually add to the experience, or is it just a bit of a naff gimmick that Hyundai has added? Well, let me press my little button here. An active sound is activated, and I've now got E-Shift activated. And I'm going to tell you, on paper, it is 100%, sounds like a gimmick. But on the road, I actually really enjoy it. I actually think it is a great addition to the car. Like, it does give you a real sense of driving. It gives you that feeling that you are once again in control of what's going on. The cool thing is it'll actually hard cut. So if I change down here and if I keep going, it's actually stalling out the acceleration. It acts like a genuine gearbox. You can't just play with it for fun and not really get involved. It forces you to engage with the car. And that to me is great. That's what we've been missing. That's what driving enthusiasts have been missing with electric cars. But that's only part of the story. Of course, the other story when it comes to the Ioniq 5N is performance. How does it perform? I'm going to be honest with you, it's frankly, mind-blowing in some ways how quick it is. This is, like I say, so much quicker than anything Hyundai has ever offered before. It's hard to really put into context. It is effectively got twice as much power as the Hyundai i30N or the i30 Sedan N. Those cars which are fun cars and quick cars, basically this thing leaves them for dead. And the amount of performance is staggering and really kind of shows just how far Hyundai has come in such a short period of time. And it does show you what electrification can do for these companies that haven't, got a history. In the past, if Hyundai wanted an engine this powerful, they would have to create a bespoke, high performance, a V8 twin turbo sort of monster. Whereas with this, well, they've just can dial up the electric motors to make more power. The other area of the Ioniq 5N that actually really impresses, aside from that straight line performance, and in fact probably impresses more even with all that straight line performance, is the ride and handling. Electric performance cars up until now have tended to be blunt, too stiff. They're too firm. They have, tried to control both the weight of the battery while also making them stiffer in terms of to give them that sort of dynamic handling. And it means, to be blunt, an uncomfortable ride. There's been certain examples in recent history that have just been, frankly, uncomfortable, unpleasant cars to ride in every day. Whereas in this, in normal mode, driving around, it feels, very livable. It soaks up the bumps quite well, even on those big 21-inch wheels. But then you dial up sports mode and the handling is impressive. It really does hang on in the corners really well. We've driven it on some really testing country roads. We'll have a go on the track as well. And it is, frankly, impressive in the way that it handles. But it is still, the Ioniq 5 as a vehicle is not really a car. It's not really a hot hatch, and it's not really a full-blown SUV. It does sort of sit in an in-between space. And so it is bigger and heavier and a bit taller than what we've already had in the i30N. And so that hot hatch handling isn't quite there. It is different. There's no doubt about it. It is a different driving experience. It isn't like hopping into an i30N or any other hot hatch you've driven, or even, frankly, a fast SUV. Hyundai has created something different here.
As you'd expect, given the price point and the obvious technology focus, the Ioniq 5N comes loaded with safety equipment. This includes all the usual passive equipment, as well as Hyundai's Smart Sense suite of active safety items. The Ioniq 5N is expected to retain the same 5-star NCAP score as the rest of the Ioniq 5 range. And for more details on the safety features of the car, make sure you check out my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au. Lastly, but by no means least, let's talk about ownership costs and warranty. Servicing intervals are every 2 years or 30,000 kilometers, whichever comes first, and each visit to the dealer will cost just $625. As with the rest of the range, the N variant is covered by a 5-year unlimited kilometer warranty for the car and an 8-year 160,000 kilometer warranty for the battery. Now, Hyundai doesn't specifically or openly offer a track warranty as it did with the original i30N, but the company says it will still cover all non-competitive high-performance driving, even if that is on a racetrack.
So what's the verdict? Has Hyundai created an electric performance car that is genuinely fun? Something that driving enthusiasts will enjoy? The answer is yes. Is it a hot hatch? Does it give you the same thrills that a hot hatch will? No, it doesn't. It gives you it's different. It's a different kind of driving experience than something we've already had. This is really, a new paradigm. It's very fast. In fact, it's arguably too fast for some people. Some people will jump into this. If you're upgrading from an i30N, a conventional hot hatch, this will blow your mind. It has genuine supercar levels of performance. That straight line speed, the acceleration is mind-boggling. But in terms of the handling, in terms of having the sound, the shifting, it seems like a backward step in some ways. It seems gimmicky, and yet it works. This genuinely is a car for driving enthusiasts. Now, if you want to know more, make sure you check out my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au.